Hi, welcome back. Here we will talk about how we can create a virtual Windows virtual machine in the Azure portal. So let me go back to the portal. So on the portal, you can either you can see the virtual machine is displayed on your dashboard, or you can go and search for the virtual machine. So anyways, you can go to the virtual machine, select on this. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to create a virtual machine here, and this virtual machine will be a Windows virtual machine. So the easiest way would be to go on the Microsoft document, and from there we can follow the steps here. So you go to the virtual machine and you search for the virtual machine as given here. So let me go back to the portal, and on this virtual machine I will click on this add button here, and it will ask me to create a virtual machine here, then option for virtual machine. Now on this virtual machine page, if you see here, there are different tabs here. One is the basic, disk, networking, until at the end the review and create. So we will go one by one on this page. The first one is a subscription. As we discussed, subscription is the thing, but you can say it's equivalent to a department in your company. So if I have an R&D department, if I have a service department, if I have a finance department, so similarly you have a department where you give the specific name to the subscription, which may be belonging to the department, and then you can accordingly charge or put all the billing under the department. So it make easy. Okay, under this department, for this subscription I have so and so billing and so virtual machine running in that department of subscription. So here I have a subscription already selected here, Azure demo subscription. Now I will create a resource group, or I can select an existing resource group. So for example, say I already have a resource group here, so let me select the same resource group here, and I can give a machine name here. So I will say demo Windows virtual machine, and I can select any region here. So any region where you're focusing to create your virtual machine, which may be closer to your specific users who will be using or who will be connecting to this virtual machine. So in my case, I'm just selecting the default US Central, and if you want, you can go just click in and you can change the region according to your needs. So for example, say I change it to US East US, and after that availability option we will keep as is, and the image. Now image here, it means like so we have multiple images here. So you can either create a Red Hat machine, you can create a Debian, Ubuntu, or Oracle Linux, anything. So we will right now we will focus here to create Windows Server 2019 here. So you just go and select it. Now Azure Spot instance, this we will study later on. Spot instance is something which if you select yes, what will happen in Azure after 24 hours or before 24 hours, so your machine will be up and running for 24 hours, and after that Azure can go and stop your virtual machine and take the compute power of your virtual machine and give it to some other user or some other maybe other people who are using the using the Azure portal, and they need more compute power. So this is something we are giving a flexibility to Azure. Okay, we are ready to give up our virtual machine compute power in case Azure needs it for some other client. So now what is the benefit of this? Benefit of this is if you use the Azure Spot instance, in this your machine charge will be very less. So what I mean by this is, so right now if I go with this 1 CPU 1 GB memory, and if I'm not using an Azure Spot instance, if you see they're charging me $10 for $10 per month. Now let me select the Azure Spot instance. So now the Azure Spot instance is not available for this because this is a very small machine. So if you see here, if I select any of the Spot machine, the per hour rate is very minimal, 0.06 per hour. So this is the use or advantage of the Azure Spot instance. So if you see here, Azure offers unused Azure capacity at a discounted rate versus pay as you go prices. So now your workload should be tolerant to infrastructure loss, as Azure may recall your capacity for pay as you go workloads. So now this is what exactly, so there is a trade-off here. If you're using Azure Spot instance, there is no guarantee that Azure will give you this machine for up and running for the number of hours which you need. So that's the reason for any of the development environment or test environment, if you need where you are flexible, okay, even if my machine is stopped or deallocated, I'm fine, I can again go and spin up. It will not impact any of my functionality. So we can go and use the Azure Spot instance, but this should not be used for production use. So now going forward, let me select a normal one. So I will go with the minimum size, which is 1 vCPU 1 GB. Now this is my username and password by which I will be connecting to my Windows machine. So let me select the username and password here. You can give any username and password which qualifies for the Azure because Here if the password is less than 12 characters or something, Azure will give you the error. So accordingly you can give the password strong password, so Azure will accept it. Now you have given the username, password, and then after the what is the inbound rule. Now in the inbound rule, what happens is to connect to your VM machine, your Windows VM machine, you open some of the ports. So here the port is RDP3389. So now what the warning here is given is the warning which you can see here is this will allow all the IP addresses to access your machine, which is not a good practice in the production environment, because what happens is if you open this port RDP port 3389 to all the IPs on the internet, then anyone can come and do an attack on your machine. So that's the reason this warning is coming here. So now what exactly we can do here is right now we can select we can select and keep it open. So later in the lab I will show you how in the network security group you can go and select a specific IP range where you can allow only those IPs to come and connect to your Windows machine. Okay, so right now we will move forward with this 3389. So this 3389 is nothing but an RDP port. It's a remote desktop protocol where you go and connect to your Windows VM machine. Okay, going forward is selecting a disk here. So now we have a multiple option for the OS disk type here. So let me go and see here. Okay, so you have a premium SSD, you have a standard solid state device, and you have a hard disk device here. So now the difference between all three is I think it's an IOPS. So if you go for the premium SSD, you will have a very high input output per second, which will be given by the OS disk. So now let me select your premium SSD here for the high IOPS, and encryption type is default, which is selected by Azure, which will be encrypting all your data on this disk. So this is my OS disk. When I say OS disk, it means like your OS, your Windows operating system will be going on this specific disk. Now even I can add a data disk here. If you see here, the data disk, you can go create and attach a new data disk where if you want to go and maybe like save all your application logs and your all file which is created by your application and all those things which can be created in the data disk. So keeping it simple, we will go with the OS disk, and I will go with the next tab. So right now we are on the networking tab. So as we discussed initially, let me show you the diagram here. So this is the diagram here. So right now we are creating a Azure VM. So Azure VM is we are on the Azure VM portal where we are trying to create the Azure VM. Now it is asking us to create a default virtual network. So this virtual network will encapsulate or will have the Azure VM. So let me go back to my portal, and if you see here, the virtual network, it has created a new virtual network. Or even if you want, you can create a new virtual network, or if there is any specific virtual network which is there, you can select from here. So now this is a virtual network which is created or which is used by Azure by itself, and if you don't need this name, then you can go and create by your own. You can give this any specific range, you can give the IP range, the subnetwork, how many subnetwork will be there as part of this virtual network. You can go and do that. So right now, keeping it simple, we will go with the virtual network, and then in this virtual network, this is the default subnet, and this is the public IP which is assigned to this Windows VM. Now why we need a public IP? We need a public IP for a VM because this public IP, with the help of with you can go and connect to the virtual machine, Windows virtual machine, from the internet also. So you don't have to be part of that virtual network to connect to the machine. So this is the use of this public IP. Now if you see here, use the public IP address if you want to communicate with the virtual machine from outside the virtual network. Because if any user who is outside the virtual network, this virtual network what we have created here, if he wants to connect to this virtual machine, he has to go and assign this public IP to the VM. Okay, so now NIC is a network security group, network security group, which is a basic one. We will see what exactly it means by the basic. And public inbound ports is allowed the selected ports, which is 3389 here. So by 3389, I can go in and connect to my virtual machine. So right now I'm not selecting any of the accelerated networking and load balancing. I will keep it off and no as of now. Let me go back to the next part. Yeah, so this is my plan, and this is okay. Now this is the boot diagnostic. Now boot diagnostic means when the virtual machine comes up and whatever the logs which the OS creates, it will go and collect all those boot diagnostic. And this is enabled with the managed storage account. Now what do you mean by managed storage account? It should create it will create this logs in a specific storage where you can go and reference that logs and see if there is anything going on in when the VM is booted up. Okay, so rest will be all off. We don't need anything. Now auto shutdown. Now auto shutdown here, it means like, for example, what happens if I create this virtual machine and if I forgot to either to stop or delete the virtual machine, what I can do is here in this case I can do an auto shutdown. So I can say, okay, 7 p.m. UTC time, what happens is you can go and shut down the VM. So in that case, maybe accidentally you have kept your VM up and running, but now since you have enabled the auto shutdown, it will go and auto shutdown 7 o'clock, for example, say in the evening, and in this way it will save the billing on your specific VM machines. Okay, so this is so I will keep the auto shutdown is off for now, and I will go to the advanced, and in the advanced tag, again we will keep everything as basic. We don't need anything here. And let me go to the tag. So this tag is basically to go and identify this VM machine. So I will say, okay, this VM machine, the department for this VM machine is, for example, say dev. So this VM machine belongs to the department dev. So just for the sake of identifying the virtual machine, and then you can identify, okay, which this virtual machine belongs to dev, and then finally what is this virtual machine doing. So I will say this is having the application printing. So I can identify this virtual machine, what is the use of this virtual machine, and how I can go and track this virtual machine. So it gives you an overall idea what exactly which department and for what purpose this virtual machine has been created. So next I will go and say review and create. So if you see here, it is doing running a final validation, and if there is any issue, any error, it will give me an error here. So let me see. It should be pretty fast. It should not take so much time for running all this validation what we have done up till now. So let me go back to the document again. So this document is exactly talking the same thing what we have done up till now. So if you see here, it has selected the resource group, the name, the region, and the image size, and then given the username, password, and the inbound rule who can go and connect on which port for this virtual machine. And yes, finally it is a review and create the virtual machine. So let's see if we have done. Yes. So my validation has been passed. So now it has now this is giving me all the details here. So what kind of machine I've created, standard B1, and it will be costing me 0.014 USD per hour, and it is giving me all these like a basic description, what is the subscription, resource group, the name of the virtual machine, the region, and what kind of image I selected, what is the size of the virtual machine, username, and the inbound port on RDP3389. I can go and connect this machine. Now the disk type, which is the OS disk type. So my operating system disk type will be the premium SSD, because I need a high IOPS, and then giving me all the network and the management and the details what we have selected in the previous pages. So now I will create here. So I will select this. Now this may take some time, so I will come back once this is up and running, and then we can go in and see how exactly the VM machine looks, and how we can try to connect to the VM machine. So here we can see my VM is deployed. So let me go back to the resource, to the VM. So this is my Windows VM machine. So now if you can see here, okay, let me go back to the networking, and we can see, yep. So this is my network security group. So if you see here, the RDP rule is created. So what exactly this means is, it means like anyone can come on the port 3389, and if you see the protocol is TCP here, and source is any. So anyone can, from any public IP, from anywhere on the internet, he can go and connect to this VM machine, which is not good if it is a production machine. So what we exactly have to do is, we can go and we can restrict this. We can go and we can change this source, and we can say, okay, any specific range of IP only should come and connect to this virtual machine. Now let me quickly go and if you see here, this is a public IP. This is a public IP which is given to this machine, from which I can go and connect to the this Windows virtual machine. So now let me go back to my virtual machine. This is my virtual machine, and let me connect to it. So I say connect and say RDP. Why we say RDP? Because this is a by RDP, by remote desktop protocol, you can go and connect to the Windows machine. So now when I go and do RDP, now see, this is saying two things: this public IP and this port. If you don't have a public IP to a Windows machine, you cannot connect it. Now let me go back and say download RDP, and I can go and connect to my machine here. So this is how you can go and connect to your machine and do an RDP to that Windows VM machine. So this is booting up. This is coming up now. So hopefully this was useful for you guys. So now don't forget to delete all these VM machines and everything, because this will charge you. So let me go back and delete all these virtual machines. So the best way is to just go and delete the entire resource group, because the reason is, if you see along with this Windows VM machine, what we have seen earlier, it has created all the specific network security group, default network, public IP, and everything. So this will charge you. Okay, so let me go back to my portal, and if you see, everything is here. My Windows VM machine, my IP, my NSG,